All right, let's jump right in. We're going to get into this really powerful story of transformation.
You know how we tend to think about enlightenment? It's often painted as this finish line, right? Like you flip a switch and boom, you're there. No more ignorance. You've kind of beaten the game.
But let's really question that for a second. Because what if that's not it at all? What if it's more like a constant dance, a continuous process?
So here's the core shift in thinking. On one side, you've got enlightenment as this fixed destination, a final goal. But on the other, there's the way Ortiz sees it, as a process, a nonstop journey of becoming something new. It's not about arriving. It's about having the courage to keep building.
Now, to really get this idea of reconstruction, you first have to understand the huge contrast that defined Ortiz's own life. When the judges on America's Got Talent look at you and say you're like a young Stevie Wonder, that's not just a compliment, that's a coronation, right? I mean, can you imagine being told that on national TV? It's a sign of just massive talent.
And then traded the global stage for family sacrifice, completely rebuilding himself from the inside out.
This was all before his life took a huge, dramatic turn.
So where did all this talent even come from? Well, let's start at the beginning. We're going to look at his incredible rise, a prodigy's ascent that started right in the heart of Harlem.
His musical upbringing was just insane. Think about it. He's growing up in Harlem, soaking in gospel and Nuyorican soul, that amazing mix of salsa, funk, and jazz.
He was a featured soloist for the Boys Choir of Harlem, touring the world, Paris, Madrid, you name it, when he was just 14 years old. 14. Let that sink in for a second. Think about what you were doing at 14.
So you see, this wasn't just some raw talent. No, this was forged. This was crafted.
And that training? Whoa, it paid off. I mean, his resume is just unreal. He's sharing stages with legends like Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. He's in a music video with Michael Jackson and Eddie Murphy. For real. Recording with Brian McKnight, doing vocal arrangements for huge artists. This wasn't just making it. This was the big leagues.
And here's the part that really gets me. He was a global performer.
And then, right at the peak of his career, right as he's about to launch into the stratosphere, and life throws him a massive curveball, a crisis at home, the call of family.
So all of a sudden, he's torn between two completely different lives. On one side, you've got the performer. Global tours, TV appearances, in the studio with music legends, a solo career just taking off. And on the other side, the caretaker, dropping out of college, becoming a single parent to his at-risk brother, caring for his grandmother with Alzheimer's, looking after his blind aunt. It's a monumental, life-altering choice.
And you know, the way he talks about it is just incredible. He says this choice, it wasn't a performance, it wasn't about playing a role. He says this was being selfless. This was, and is, an expression of love. He chose family, period. So making that choice, it started him on this profound journey inward. This next part gets really personal. We're going to talk about the deconstruction, taking apart the artist to find the actual man underneath. And this is where things get really raw. He writes in his journal, "I don't want to be found in him, covered in my stuff." Wow. Think about that. He's talking about wanting to shed the ego, the entire identity he had built as a performer, just to find something real.
And his whole self-exploration really boiled down to this one simple but, terrifying question he asked himself. So what am I scared of? And he knew he had to face it head on to find the answer.
And the answer, well, it's just two words, but man, do they hit home for so many of us. Imposter syndrome. After all that success, after getting praised by legends,
and that realization leads to this moment of just radical accountability. He says, no one has lied to me more than me. He knows he can't change that fact, but he can accept that truth. And that's not about blame, right? That's about waking up.
And then he starts connecting the dots, realizing this wasn't just his struggle. It was bigger. He talks about generational trauma and how all these systems were in place to keep him, as he puts it, a stranger to myself. To really heal, he knew he had to be the one to break that cycle.
This is the real pivot, the huge mindset shift. He starts seeing hardship in a completely new light. He says when he feels afflicted, it's like God is sending a Goliath, not to crush him, but to reveal him. He says, I am made while in conflict, adversity, and trials. It's what shapes me. The adversity was the very thing forging him into who he was meant to be.
Okay, so you've had the deconstruction, where he's taken everything apart. So what comes next? Well, the reintroduction. This is where we see the man who walked out of the fire with a totally new identity and a new purpose.
And listen to this comeback. After 20 years, 2 decades of being a caretaker, he made sure his family had the round-the-clock care they needed, and then he went back and finished his college degree. And the most incredible part of all, 0 regrets.
This whole journey gave him this amazing new perspective that he calls holistic healing. It's all about breaking down those cultural stigmas around mental health. He realized that therapy wasn't something to be ashamed of, it was a vital tool. And it was through therapy that he had this major breakthrough. He finally learned how to give himself the same grace he'd been giving away to everyone else his entire life.
So from all this, he basically created a roadmap for transformation. First, you have to acknowledge and accept it all. The fear, the shame. Second, you forgive yourself for how you coped in the past. Those weren't failures, they were survival skills. Third, and I love this one, you see trauma differently. You're not broken. And finally, you find purpose by using your vulnerability to help other people.
And that's really where it all comes together. He sees that nothing in his life was wasted. The crazy fame, the sacrifice, the trauma, it all fuels his new mission in social work. I mean, who better to help someone through the recovery than a person who has lived it so openly?
And he ends with this. So now that you know me a little better, allow me to reintroduce myself. It's so powerful. He's not the prodigy anymore. He's not just the caretaker. He is all of it, reconstructed. It kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What parts of our own selves are we waiting to reconstruct?